And then I come here to Asia, having a little bit the digital nomad lifestyle, so working on laptops, going to different coffee shops, bouncing around in all the regions, and finally landing here in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. We have Vietnam, we have a country that just emerged, right? We have around 7% GDP per year, so obviously those people here in Vietnam, the middle class is rising. So if you have a company, you can consider importing products, for instance. Vietnamese, you see the way they hang out, they like to consume, they like to go to the new hot places.
Good evening from Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I hope everybody's doing well. It's Mike here, and in today's video, we've got another expat interview for you guys. So I'm going to introduce you to a guy called Guillaume, who I first connected with about 2 months ago. And Guillaume is a French guy, as you might have guessed, and he is an absolutely top bloke and a very useful guy to know as well, because he specializes in helping expats to start businesses here in Vietnam. Now, when I say start businesses, I'm talking about all the red tape, the bureaucracy side. So which forms you need to fill in, which accountants are good to connect with, which lawyers are good to know. He's a very, very connected and most importantly, a trustworthy guy. So we're gonna have a chat to him, find out a little bit more about his background, what brought him over to Vietnam, and talk a little bit about the procedures regarding starting a business as a foreigner in Vietnam. So this is going to be a useful one for all of you guys who have been asking about how to stay in Vietnam long term. Now, Guillaume's been here for 8 years and he's got a very, very good knowledge of what's actually happening with the visa situation. So that's enough for me, guys. My good friend Nate Wells has kindly allowed me to use his studio today. I know he's preparing the studio for us as we speak. So let's head on over there, go and meet Guillaume and get started with today's interview. Mr. Guillaume, ça va?
Hey, Mike.
How's things? Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. So here we are in the studio with my good friend Guillaume Rondeau. So Guillaume, thank you so much for joining us today, mate.
Hi, Mike. Very happy to be here today to discuss about life in Vietnam and our perspective.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. Now, Guillaume and I first connected a couple of months ago, actually, and I'd been following his channel for almost a year, watching his content all about living here in Vietnam and doing business here in Vietnam. And immediately I resonated with the sort of stuff Guillaume was putting out because it's very, very similar to the content that I'm producing. And it's been great to get to know him, to do an interview on his channel and to invite him back over to my channel to share a little bit more about his experiences of doing business and helping other people to do business here in the city of Saigon. So Guillaume, why don't we start off and talk a little bit about your background? Where are you from and what were you doing before you came to Vietnam, Guillaume?
So my name is Guillaume. I'm French, obviously, with my accent, originally from south of France, a lovely city called Toulouse. And then before that, I just had a normal, I would say, career. I mean, I just work in the finance industry, in a bank in Paris. And then a first project brought me to learning more about digital marketing, e-commerce, etc. And that's how now, maybe 10 years after, I'm here in Asia.
Okay, so when did you first come over to Vietnam and decide to move here?
So I failed a first project in France with a friend of mine. So it was a good lesson, always when you start with a big failure, you can learn a lot of things. So that project kind of gave me some first insights and hint about the opportunity that you have into selling online. So I was at that time, we tried at that time to launch a SaaS, so software as a service. We failed it, but it gave me the opportunity to connect to e-commerce people that were running e-commerce business in France. And I could get some of those clients to do some freelancing. And after a while living in France, I was a little bit tired about the life over there. And then I just chose to take a backpack, keep those first clients that I used to work with. And then I come here to Asia, having a little bit the digital nomad lifestyle, so working on laptops, going to different coffee shops, bouncing around in all the regions, and finally leading here in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
So what year was it when you first bounced over to Asia and left France? How many years ago?
So it was around 8 years ago, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you've been over in the region for quite some time. And I believe I'm right in saying that you spent some time in Cambodia as well, right?
Yeah, so I live in Phnom Penh. It was actually my first destination when I come here in Southeast Asia, just because I had a friend of mine living there. And then it really helped me to kickstart everything. Because at that time I had some clients. I used to do some freelancing job, but having a client, it can secure somehow a certain income. But I had already that mindset of trying to diversify, trying to build a passive income. I was influenced by Timothy Ferriss. You may,
of course,
you may
the 4-hour work week, the legend himself.
So it just blew up my mind into like, wow, you can really have passive income coming from online. And then while I was living in Phnom Penh, I could connect to some French entrepreneurs living there, doing digital products, YouTube channels. And then they really helped me, kind of babysitting me, because at the time I was young compared to them. They were maybe 20 years experience. And then I could learn a lot from their insights. And that's how was this first experience of living in Phnom Penh. And then after 6 months, I was a little bit, I wanted something different. So I just choose to experience other countries in the region, and then I lead into Ho Chi Minh City.
Okay, so obviously you've chosen Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon as your base. How would you compare Cambodia versus Vietnam and the life in both places?
So comparing the life between Cambodia and Vietnam, I think that in Cambodia it's a very good place to start. Just because it's very easy to settle there, right? You don't have any visa problems. You can just come, take an apartment for 6 months. It's very easy to take a short-term leasing and then travel the country. And then you have a small community of entrepreneurs living there, just because again it's very easy to get there, right, and to live there. And then, but the downside I found after 6 months is that the country is a little bit too small. So that community is, you will always meet the same people. I feel that it's not as diverse as what you have here in Vietnam. Vietnam is like way bigger. The community in Saigon is way more dynamic. And then just because the country is, again, so big, you can really have a different lifestyle. You can go to very nice beaches in the south, go travel to some mountain areas. That's why finally after 6 months I left Cambodia for Vietnam.
I completely understand and completely agree. I mean, my experience in Cambodia, I was there for a couple of months at the beginning of this year, and I found exactly the same. The entrepreneurial spirit is much higher here in Saigon, right? I mean, Cambodia, I found it a great place to hang out for a couple of months, but as far as networking, meeting other entrepreneurs, going to events with other content creators, there's just no comparison with Saigon. There are, like you say, it's so dynamic. You've got people in so many digital industries, from marketing to content creation to SEO, that the sort of people you can meet here, it's just a different league to Cambodia. But at the end of the day, it depends what you want, doesn't it? If you want the more laid back, slow, relaxed lifestyle, possibly Phnom Penh in Cambodia could be for you. But if you're looking for networking, meeting switched on people, and certainly a business community, there's no question that Ho Chi Minh and Vietnam as a whole is the best place for that. And that sort of brings us on to our next point. Now, you shared that you were doing freelancing. You looked into achieving passive incomes, which I know you've since achieved. What is your business and your focus in Vietnam right now, 8 years after you arrived, Guillaume?
So I still work a lot on my e-commerce journey, I would say, working as an affiliate. So for the people who doesn't know this term, it's like you are a third party. You're going to help brands to sell online. And then my goal during almost 5 years was just to build a bunch of websites, attract traffic, and then refer this traffic to different products. It was informational products, so digital products, but as well as physical products. So for instance, I have a website about aquabike, the bicycle that you put in the water to lose weight. So I really developed a bunch of different websites in French market, Italian and Spanish market. So that generates me a certain income per month and helped me to explore other opportunities. And then when I came here in Vietnam, I start to build a team. I start to learn more about the different opportunities in the region. And that's how it brought me to the new journey, and the one we are discussing today as well, Move to Asia, that is actually helping other people to come to Vietnam to do business, to invest, and to explore work opportunities. So that's my second job I'm running as well. And then the last job I took recently is to buy a franchise model that is a worldwide brand, and buy the Vietnamese edition, because this is a media website, and try to push this website in Vietnam. So yeah, my days are pretty packed. I'm really jumping from one task to one task, but that's what I like.
It makes sense. And again, we've got a very similar background. I mean, for me, achieving that passive income, like yourself, has allowed me to branch out and look at other areas. And the affiliate marketing side of things is a great way to do that, isn't it? It doesn't happen at the drop of a hat. We both know to optimize those sites to actually get regular sales coming through. It does take time, work, and effort, doesn't it? It's not going to happen overnight. But once you've achieved that and the sales are coming in, the income's coming in, it gives you the financial freedom, and it gives you the freedom of time to explore other avenues. Now, movetoasia.com is your website, correct?
Yeah.
And this helps people effectively to relocate over here to specializing in Vietnam, right?
So yeah, Mike, so 90% of the content is about Vietnam on the website as well as on YouTube. Obviously, because I'm here, and also I learn more about the different opportunities. I met more people here, so I could really build some connection with trustworthy partners. Mm-hmm. Let's say, how do you find a good accountant in here, right? How do you find a legit lawyer who can help you to set up your business? If you want to invest into real estate, how do you connect with reliable and trustworthy real estate agents, things like that. So because I was here in this part of Vietnam, I really focus on Ho Chi Minh City especially, and then smoothly expand those services in all Vietnam.
It's a great business idea that certainly I know is already helping a lot of people, because certainly the long-term stay options right now at the time of recording are pretty limited, aren't they? And I get a lot of questions on my videos. I know the recording that we did together on your channel, a lot of people asking about long-term stay and is it possible now? But I also know that the regulations are almost like a hamster wheel, aren't they? They're almost changing on a weekly basis. So if somebody is looking to come to Vietnam and stay here long term to set up a business, is that something that you could assist with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have people who want to come here because they already have a business overseas. This is the best people to work with, because obviously they already have something running overseas and they are considering Vietnam as an option to set up a new entity. For instance, in Vietnam, just because of the cost of labor, it's quite easy to set up a remote team. So if you already have a company overseas, you can here in Vietnam hire designers, people working for the IT, any kind of young talented people that can help you to scale your business overseas. So for those kind of companies, it may be interesting to consider opening such an entity. And then after you have people just you like me, we like to be in Asia, and then we have a business on the side, but we want also to have a setup that help us to stay. And then opening a company as well can be one of the options people can consider to live long term in Vietnam, but it's not for everyone, because as you mentioned, regulation are changing quite fast, the policy as well for the visa, and just the bureaucracy and the red tape that we have in Vietnam are some of the downside, I would say, or things that you have to know before starting if you want to set up a company in Vietnam.
Sure. I think you've touched on a couple of points I'd like to talk about there, and certainly the bureaucracy and the paperwork over here in Vietnam. Unless you've got that experience, unless you've got that local knowledge and really that local contact, somebody on the ground with connections, it can be really tricky, can't it, actually getting things moving. But you also touched on some of the positive points of doing business here, such as the huge pool of talent that we have here in Saigon. I mean, I work with amazing SEO developers, with incredible graphic designers who are producing quality levels of work and are very, very affordable to work with. So, I mean, let's just touch on that a little bit more. And what would you say some of the pros, some of the good points about doing business as a foreigner in Vietnam, Guillaume?
So we have Vietnam, we have a country that just emerged, right? We have around 7% GDP per year. So obviously, those people here in Vietnam, the middle class is raising. So if you have a company, you can consider importing products, for instance. Vietnamese, you see the way they hang out, they like to consume, they like to go to the new hot places. And then it can be a way, if you have a good idea, to import a product, a service, or just open a franchise, for instance, a franchise that is overseas. You open it here and then you bootstrap it. So that's one point, the GDP growth, and then the fact that Vietnamese people would like to consume. Then other things is that just here, as you mentioned, you have the talented people. So you can easily hire young people that are so much willing to work for you because you will be a foreigner. So they would see that opportunity into, oh, I can learn different languages, I can work for foreign clients, etc. So it could be quite easy to start hiring people. And then at the beginning, you don't necessarily need to start with having your own company, right? You can just work with freelancers.
Sure.
And that's how I got started. Like 7 years ago, I built an informational product. I just post a picture. I just post on the expat group. I'm looking for a local person that is very fit and that can come over for half a day to a park to shoot some fitness videos. I got someone. I got a videographer. I don't remember how much I paid, maybe less than $200. I had everything, you know. So you can really build something using somehow, even if it's not a pejorative word, because first you're going to use freelancer, but later on you hope that you can scale and then really employ those peoples. So that's some of the benefit you have here.
So what would you say some of the hurdles or the difficult points of doing business here in Vietnam for foreigners are, Guillaume?
So first, the language barrier here in Vietnam. It's not everyone who can spend 6 months, 1 year to be able to speak Vietnamese fluently. And even if you can do it, if you need to deal with authorities, it may obviously still be complicated. So in Vietnam, you always have to rely on trustworthy people. Let's say until now we use visa agents. You need to have a proper accountant that know how things work. Same for lawyers. If you don't want to do mistake and then set up your company properly, that's things that you have to go through. On the other angles, in Vietnam, you also have all this bureaucracy, so a lot of paperwork, right? So those people will submit a lot of papers, and then if you run yourself, your own company, you will always have like business license, different tax filing to go. Sometimes if you are doing a mistake, you're gonna be asked to go to the tax authorities to explain. You know, that's really a day-to-day reality of running a business in Vietnam. And then you have also the side of on the investment perspective. It's not always clear what you have to plan ahead to be able to stay in good standing later on. Let me explain that. 2 years ago, if we invested 10K in a local company, as a foreigner, we could get a 2-year TRC. Then that become a little bit more tricky after they raise that capital a little bit more, and then after they ask the company to really do business. So they are really kicking out somehow everyone that is just having a shell company and doesn't really want to do real business in Vietnam. So that's the trend we have to observe. So I would really encourage people who want to come here to do business to really have a purpose and to really have somehow enough capital to get started. So they are sure that in 6 months, in 1 year, if all those regulation change, they can still somehow change a little bit the plan, adjust, and then still being able to do their business.
That makes complete sense. And speaking from personal experience, I know that the goalposts keep widening and then shortening and then moving a little bit to the left and to the right. And unless you have got, like you say, a trustworthy, knowledgeable, connected person on the ground, it can be really difficult to follow these regulations because the government don't release them. They don't do press releases. When they do, it's in a foreign language, and it can be really, really tricky. So having somebody like yourself to consult with and to work with would really be an invaluable resource for anybody who's sitting in their home country now thinking about setting up shop, setting up a business here in Vietnam. Now, there are still lots and lots of foreigners with thriving businesses here in Vietnam, like yourself, Guillaume, you know, so it is possible. I see lots of people in the comments saying, there's no point in trying to go to Vietnam, there's no way to do it, but it really is what you know and who you know, isn't it? And it's like Guillaume says, don't come here with $5,000 in your pocket and expect to be setting up a business and staying here for a few years, you know? You're going to need the capital and you're going to need the connections as well. That would be something that I would really hammer home to you guys. And Guillaume, I'd like to hear your take on this one. I mean, if somebody is sitting in their home country, they're into business, they want to come over to this incredible country and stay long term and set up shop. They don't want to do the 30-day e-visa route. Like, what advice do you have to somebody who does want to move to Vietnam and start a business?
So I would say, if you don't have any business experience, come here and then look for a job. So if you are someone who is an English-speaking person, just come here, find a teaching position, stay in Vietnam for at least a year, network as much as you can, try to go to co-working space. They organize a lot of events, try to connect to the Chamber of Commerce and really build around yourself a network. And then after that first year of exploration, you would be able to really put the pros and cons of really benchmarking the options, right? Because if you are coming here to invest, just know that in Vietnam, just when you're going to put money in Vietnam, it's going to be very hard to cash it out, to send money back overseas. Sure. So plan ahead in advance, really come here, find a position, really spend time to explore those business opportunities. That's for the people who don't have any knowledge. If you already have a business overseas, you can just come here, same on either business visa if you have a partner here that can sponsor you, or on the Z visa. Right now, you can just leave the country and come back, spend few weeks, same to connect to the potential partners that you can do business in Vietnam. And then if you are ready to get started, it's quite easy actually. You can just benchmark the different options in terms of lawyers. If you choose a place like Ho Chi Minh City, it's a city where the entrepreneurship is everywhere, sure, right? It is. Just the locals, a lot of foreigners. So you can benchmark the different options, finding a reliable lawyer, accountant person, get the proper information that is updated, because again, as we mentioned, things change very fast. And then, just go step by step.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I mean, anybody who comes over here straight away and thinks that they're going to set up a business and be able to do it like that, you've got to come and do a recce, so to speak, you know, meet people, connect with people, get yourself on the ground and see how stuff actually works. It's all very well asking questions in Facebook groups and doing your research on YouTube, but in my experience, you need to be there in person. You need to be pressing the flesh, as we would say, you know. And like Guillaume says, there are so many networking events. There's loads of co-working spaces. The Hive is one that comes to mind over in Tao Dien. It's got a couple of really good locations. I was there at a networking event myself a couple of weeks ago and met some very, very switched on people. So if you do want to come here and start a business, don't just jump over, book a one-way flight and expect it to happen. You've got to come, you've got to make the connections. Reach out to people like Guillaume, who will be able to give you solid professional advice, you know, not just somebody who claims to know what they're talking about in a Facebook group. You'll find that a lot of the visa agents, well, they're actually not really experts, but someone like Guillaume, who is involved with the business community, he's been involved for, like I say, almost a decade here in Vietnam, who really knows what he's talking about. And he's given me a lot of advice on my visa situation. So I would highly recommend reaching out to Guillaume if you are in that situation and you do want to get over to Vietnam and start a business. So how can people find you on social media, Guillaume?
So it's quite easy. You type Guillaume Rondan on Google. You have some articles or just the YouTube channel. And then I also write a book that is called The 7 Mistakes I Made in Asia. So you can just download this book. It's free. And then actually those 7 mistakes, I made them in Vietnam, if I could say. So go check this out. We'll have a brief information about how to get started if you want to learn about business and investment opportunities. And then from this, you can do your own due diligence, connect other people. I'm not the only one in town providing services like that. And then, yeah, explore by yourself the opportunities.
Fantastic. Well, I will put all of those links in the description to those videos so you can grab Guillaume's book. You can check out his website and all of his other resources, and of course his incredible YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description there. Now, if you found this interview beneficial, guys, and you'd like to connect with myself and Guillaume, there's also a link to my free Facebook group, Digital Nomad Entrepreneurs, where there's all sorts of free training, visa advice, and some really cool people. So you can join that by clicking the link in the description. Guillaume, that about ties it up for today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Mike, for the invitation. It was a pleasure to discuss.
My pleasure. So, like I said, guys, thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.